Greetings and welcome to step 11 of our Awakening in 30 Steps. Today's contemplation is on refuge, which offers us safe direction for evolution. In thinking about how to present today's contemplation, I went through so many iterations in my head, and I became quite frustrated to fit it into the short format. It really pushed me. But in my moment of frustration, something dawned on me that what I really needed to take refuge in that moment was in you. Would you receive me and would you accept me in my bumbling and my fumbling and in my limitation? And would you look past all my, imperfections and take what you can from these pithy reflections? And so in that moment, rather than relying on an old narrative of striving for perfection, of fear of not being accepted, I took the leap of faith in you and took refuge in you. And so here is the best attempt I can at really presenting refuge in a tight little nugget. And at the same time, I'm just accepting wherever this lands for you. I hope it's helpful. The image of a refuge in the Buddhist text is of a ship out at sea. It's lost its moorings. It no longer has sail nor rudder. It has no bearing, and the tempest is coming. The currents and the waves and the wind and the rain are assailing the ship. And what it needs in that moment is a safe harbor. It needs to find shore. And of course, what the analogy really represents is our consciousness floating through the vast expanse of samsara and assailed by the karmic forces of delusion and of affliction. And what it's looking for is relief. So one of the things I thought we could do is just really do an honest inventory of all the places that we go when we need relief. And when I was thinking about this, the obvious ones are our coping mechanisms. But then it also dawned on me that sometimes we have very subtle belief systems and also people and relationships and communities that we also rely on for relief. The most obvious ones, of course, let's start with that maybe we find ourselves doing a 6-part series in one go on Netflix as a source of relief. 6-episode binge. Maybe we fill our shopping carts on Amazon and swipe away buying a bunch of stuff, to take away the pain, to take away the loneliness, to take away the numbness, to take away the sadness, to take away the malaise or the boring feelings. I'm sure some of us, more than some of us, have found our way to the bottom of a bottle of wine or ate more than we needed to. Maybe we finished off that Ben & Jerry's pint of ice cream. There are other more subtle ways that we escape our experience and that we seek refuge. Sometimes I think that these ones are a little take a little more, require a little more of us to analyze. I was thinking the other day that subtle beliefs like if we get onto the other side of the valley, everything will be okay. I have 2 kids, both under 7. And it's hard sometimes, really it is. They push every button that I have. And I find myself saying this mantra, when they get a little older. Or sometimes I think people take pity on me and they see me with these 2 kids and they do stop me in the street and they say, it gets better. There is refuge right there. Oh, it gets a little better. If I go to college and get a good degree, if I go and get my master's degree, well, maybe if I get my PhD, then it will get better. If I meet the right partner, then it will get better. If I add that extra digit to my income, then it will get better. If I just move into the 3-bedroom house during the pandemic, then it will get better. These are all more subtle ways that we take a little relief, a little way to cope. And I'm not trying to judge anyone. I don't really want to judge myself all that much. This is like a way of doing inventory to get real. To get real with ourselves, that the ways that we have learned, often in very difficult situations and often when we were in childhood, very vulnerable, we learn to rely on coping mechanisms and belief systems and other people that in a way, at their very best, only provided temporary relief. And I think that's the key point of the reflection. Take an honest inventory in all the ways that we rely on things, experiences, and people, and beliefs to provide relief for our current predicament or circumstance: pain, shame, anger, loneliness, sadness. I call these the usual suspects. We probably relied on them a long time ago, and once you rely on something once, twice, 3 times, and it actually works in the moment, they become second nature. They become intuitive. They go unconscious. And then it's wired. It's automatic. So when you feel alone, boom, you're reaching for the brownie. And when you feel angry, boom, you're slamming your hand against the wall. And when you're in a conflict, maybe, boom, you learn to zip your lip and disappear. And in the moment, maybe all these things work to abate the feeling in the moment. But this is the second reflection. Think about the long-term consequence of the usual suspects that we have reached to. We couldn't do anything better. It was our best attempt in childhood, but now they're second nature, and now we have a chance to really reflect what kind of refuge and relief they really provide. Certainly they may do something in the moment, but what about the long term? According to the Buddha's second noble truth, the key reflection is to see that over the long term, what these behaviors and beliefs and reliances actually do is they reinforce a certain traumatic narrative or a certain traumatic view of ourselves. In other words, what we think, say, and do in the moment may provide temporary relief, but in the long haul, what they do is reinforce our impoverished sensibility. They come home to roost to make life that much more miserable. So what are the alternatives then? After we do a little reflection on what hasn't worked, what does the gradual path tradition offer? Well, the gradual path tradition offers the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha as a triple refuge, as a triple reliance, something that is supposed to really serve as a strong and lasting sense of relief, a strong and lasting direction for consciousness. What's called safe direction by the Buddhist scholar Alex Berzin. I would really like that idea that evolution, that a consciousness is traveling over evolution. And it reaches for this and it reaches for that. And unfortunately, those things that it's reaching for only send it further out to sea. But Berzin calls refuge safe direction. So this is giving consciousness a passage in the right direction for a proper and meaningful and purposeful path forward. The Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, let's do them quickly and then let's look at them in more depth. The Buddha is the historical founder, the first human being to achieve an awakening. Someone first summited Everest, someone first landed on the moon. The Buddha was the first one to make it to the great summit of awakening. His teachings are the Dharma, all the methodologies that he taught in order for each and every one of us to replicate his experience. And the Sangha are the community of like-minded spiritual aspirants or seekers whom we can rely on to support our highest wish to achieve enlightenment. But if I go to the Buddha and I firmly pray to him, Buddha, please help me. Will I become awake? Will I find the relief that I need? And if I read his doctrines and his sutras and his teachings, will just reading them be enough to really provide relief? And if I go and cry on the shoulder of a fellow spiritual seeker, will it be enough to provide relief? Well, maybe again in the temporary, but certainly not enough for the long and lasting freedom that we're seeking. So what is it that we need to contemplate here? Well, the Buddha is a principle, and what it means is the Buddha's awakening came about because at our very nature we are already free. We're already free. The Buddha principle means our very nature is free. The Dharma principle is, while we're free, we're still bound up like a ball of yarn in all our tendencies and beliefs and obscurations and afflictions. And so the true spirit of the second and third noble truth is that while we're bound up, we can disrupt the cycles of stress and trauma. We can put an end to them. If we find the gap between feeling and action, we can break the chain cycle of causation. We can end our misery, but we need to find the gap. And of course, the Dharma, the Sangha is, we need to surround ourselves with like-minded people who share our value system, who support and uplift us, who don't drag us down, who don't influence us in a negative way, who don't steer consciousness back to sources of stress and trauma, but actually help galvanize us, support us, inspire us, and lead us into a positive direction. So what it really means to take refuge is to remember that we're open, that things can change. If there's a little voice like there was for me yesterday saying, I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't do this, to remember we are open. Then to take refuge in the Dharma. Today, I must do something different. I must plant a seed of virtue. I must plant a way to grow. I must blaze a new pathway. And then the Sangha, to take refuge in the Sangha means, let me set boundaries. Let me set good boundaries and make better choices about the beliefs and the people that I surround myself with and that I adopt. It's time to let go of people who don't serve. It doesn't mean have any animosity. It doesn't mean have any ill will. It just means make better choices. Just like if you want to run a marathon, you have to make choices about your exercise regimen and your diet. You have to choose things that nourish you and will help you achieve your goal. So taking refuge, maybe it's worthwhile for you to consider what taking refuge means after this reflection. As I mentioned at the top, I take refuge in you. Please accept me. Please see past my limits. Please take from this post whatever is meaningful for you. And in that way and in that moment, the decision that I made today in this post was not to rely on an old narrative that no one will ever accept me and I have to be perfect and I have to strive, which only stressed me out, which only made me more anxious. Enough is enough. Today I disrupt the cycle. So today's contemplation is refuge, which offers us safe direction for our consciousness over the vast terrain of evolution. Step 11 on our 30 steps of gradual awakening. Till soon, all best wishes.